Hey, good afternoon. Pastor Aaron Campbell here with our weekday daily, what's called the Daily Bread Drive Through. But this afternoon, just hearing the news of my dear friend, mentor, a man I called Uncle so affectionately, Ravi Zacharias, going home to glory. This is the day. This is when the Lord called him home as he passed yesterday. Just thought that I would take time just today to share some reflections, some memories about a man whom God used to impact the world and to impact so many of us. I did not write anything out. This is just, after this morning, just looking at photos of myself and Ravi and the family, and just decided I would just sit and just share my heart, and I just pray it's a blessing as we're all walking in, the paradox of sadness because there's someone whom we love who we miss, already so greatly. We feel his loss already. But, at the same time, joy because we know that this is his coronation day, as he is before the Lord and getting to hear those beautiful words, well done, my good and faithful servant, enter into the joy of the Lord. Um, just want to share that we need to remember to just keep, his amazing wife, Margie, and his family, and of course, the RZIM team in our prayers during this time. But let me just share just some memories, and even as I put this on this morning, realizing that the last time I even had this combination on was when Rafi and I were together for one of the events, that I did in Philadelphia. I have my son here with me, and he's also just going to share. My wife, as we're all working from home in this quarantine culture, her being an attorney for a bank, she's upstairs finishing a phone call, but she'll also be jumping in on the tail end of this just to share some of her reflections, with Ravi as well. So just to be sensitive with time, let me just back up and just share, how here I am, at 22 years old. We're talking 1996. I was saved from just the most raw streets in America, the New York City, Philadelphia streets, also from just the high minded academic space, where I was a humanist, felt there was no need for God, mocked the Bible, mocked the cause of Christ, and then was radically saved. And at 22 years old, immediately people began telling me, you've got to listen to this guy, Ravi Zacharias. You've got to listen to this guy. And here I was with a pre-med background and, just having gone through 7 different worldviews before coming to find the truth in the very Bible I literally tried to destroy. I just began listening to this Ravi Zacharias, and right away I could just tell by the accent, okay, he's a foreign man and he's an Eastern man, and I'm listening and I'm growing and going to Christian bookstores, all so new for me, and just anything I can grab by him. And I remember, books like The Grand Weaver and, Jesus Among Other Gods, and just growing and hearing him break down origin, meaning, morality, and destiny, and all these things. Um, and I never knew that this man that I so admired and who had so shaped and groomed my mind and taught me from afar how to use all of my experiences in so many different worldviews and in hedonism and existentialism and agnosticism, atheism, and how to use all of that for a ministry of apologetics. I learned all of that from my dear brother and my uncle, Ravi. I never imagined that we would end up being close. And then, here is one of our events, held at one of the top city clubs in the country, the famous Union League of Philadelphia, where myself and an amazing team, Mark Prime, and so many, too many to name, where we put on an event for some 400 of the city's top CEOs and leaders and government officials, and where Ravi shared. But what led up to this was I just had a vision of bringing Ravi to Philadelphia. And Ravi had never been to Philadelphia. Here he had traveled the world. He had been to the main line of Philadelphia suburb, sharing at a church out there some time before. But Ravi had never yet been to Philadelphia. So I made a cold call. We're talking 2011 now. I made a cold call to RZIM and just began inquiring, how can I book Ravi Zacharias? And I wrote a letter and said, hey, you've got to come to my alma mater. You have to come to the University of Pennsylvania. You know, the University of Pennsylvania invented the first computer and so many innovative things. And among the Ivies, this is the one Ivy League you have not come to yet. I would love if you would come to the alma mater of myself and my wife. And I remember speaking with Penny Buckingham, you know, you can come just grab a seat. I remember calling Penny Buckingham at RZIM, and I said, you know, here's the letter and here's my personal invitation for Ravi. And she said, okay, well, I'm looking at the schedule. Ravi has said that he would love to come to the University of Pennsylvania, and I'm on the phone. And I remember I'm in the parking lot picking my kids up from school. And I'm like, okay, great. And then she goes, how is 2014? February of 2014 is the first opening he has. It was 2011, and I had never booked anything that far out in my life. And I just chuckled on the phone and I said, sure, you know, but let me just share that 3 years raced by. And you know what's interesting is we all heard how Whole Foods was declared one of the happiest places to work. I soon began working with the RZIM team, and I will tell you, I think Whole Foods is in for some serious competition because the RZIM team, it was a giant family. The way they loved one another, united and worked together, it was the happiest place to work, you know. And I began working with the RZIM team, and lo and behold, February 2014 arrived. We had the event set up at the Union League. And then the next day, we had the event at the University of Pennsylvania. And I remember the day right after, I actually was invited to share at the United Nations, and Ravi was so excited about that. And we were just grinding. Well, the plane lands and a blizzard had just hit Philadelphia. Margie, his wife, gets off the plane, and my first time meeting her, Margie comes up to me and she deboarded first, and she says, "Did you hear? Ravi couldn't make it." And just before my jaw like hit the ground and shattered, she says, "Oh, I'm just playing. He'll be out in a minute." And that's how our relationship began. And we hopped in the car, and I knew Ravi loved to eat. I'd listened to so many of his teachings, so we just went to the Park Restaurant down in Rittenhouse in downtown Philadelphia. My amazing wife, you know, an attorney running so busy, and as a pastor's wife and an attorney and a mother of three, she got the kids all ready. I'm pulling up with Ravi. She's got them, and you know that whole routine. She's got them in their shirts and their jackets, and they just came, and we sat down, and just we were just tired, but we had this excitement. You know, he had been traveling all day in this blizzard and different layovers. I had been running crazy with putting the events together. I was on no sleep, and we sat down and we just broke bread. And I remember, I'll share this. I shared with Ravi when he first landed. I said, Ravi, you know, there are some people who are angry with me. And the first time we're face to face, he's in the car with me and we're driving. And mind you, because of his back problems, I was sure to have my SUV. I had went and checked the mattresses myself at the Rittenhouse Hotel to make sure the mattresses were good for his back. Just had it just total. My wife and I, we felt like this man gives so much and travels so much, and we know that just in fallen human nature, some people may just see him for what he delivers and not see the man. Let's make a trip where we just really minister to the man, minister to his wife, you know, and us being in ministry understand that reality, and obviously them on a much larger scale. So we just were out to spoil them. But anyway, he got in the car, and I remember I said to Ravi, you know, we were at the airport, we get in the car, and I said, Ravi, you know, there's some people who are really mad at me because I won't charge extra for the Union League event to make money. I won't charge extra. I will only break even, and there's some people very angry. And Ravi hung his head, and he just said, I know I've seen ugly stuff myself. And something about that moment where I sighed with that heaviness and he sighed, it just united us in this very deep way of where this is going to be a relationship where it's going to be safe for us just to be who we are in front of each other. And that just began that. Then obviously, fast forward, she comes to the restaurant and we're just eating and everything. And you just want to share just what it was like when we sat down, just breaking bread with Ravi the first time in the blizzard and everything?
Mm-hmm. Um, well, we had two events, so I had an opportunity to meet Ravi and his wife twice, and the first time was kind of a blur because, as Aaron said, we were just kind of running crazy. But it was it was like sitting down to a family meal, and that was the thing that I really remembered the most. Was we had just met. Um, his wife was there, and but yet we were just sitting around the table and enjoying each other and having great conversation as if we'd known each other for much longer than that. So I really was blessed. The biggest thing that blessed me about meeting Ravi and Margie is that Margie was there, and the amount of support that she gave to him. You could clearly see they were very close in their marriage and their relationship. She gave me some really great pearls of wisdom in some of our private conversations, and it was just really good times. And to be able to sit down with one of the who's probably the greatest modern apologist of our time, and hear his stories and from his mouth about places he'd been, and then to hear his wife talk about her perspective, phone calls that they had while he was traveling, and what she was thinking or feeling while she was home, and he was overseas in conditions that were, somewhat sometimes scary for him. Was really a blessing for me. It was just a beautiful thing as a wife, as a pastor's wife, just to hear that firsthand and witness it firsthand.
So we did this event at the Union League, 400 plus of the top CEOs, government officials of the city. And I remember the Union League was shocked because they said it's a blizzard. Who are all of the city's leaders, the top of, execs at Comcast and the Philadelphia Zoo and all from City Hall? It's a blizzard on a Monday afternoon. Who is this man that all of the city is packing inside? And Ravi delivered. And the message that I had asked him to share on was the economy of thought, worldviews, past, present, and future. But he asked me what I would pick as a topic. Who picks a topic for Ravi? It's like, Ravi, here's the topic just so we can have something on paper. But Ravi, do your thing, and you could hear a pin drop. And I remember during the Q&A afterwards, you had the top executives and leaders of the city raising their hands like little kids, just ooh, ooh, ooh. And I'm pointing from the lectern and the microphone is being raced around to different people. Mark Prime, great friend, running the microphone. And it was one of the most powerful moments, but what I didn't realize is the next day at the University of Pennsylvania would end up being one of the most viewed events that Ravi has ever done. 2.2 million views and counting on YouTube. If you type in Ravi Zacharias and then type in the famous question, what are you afraid of? You will see the event at the University of Pennsylvania. I bought him a tie, a University of Pennsylvania tie, and he wore it that night. And he said, "Hey, would you mind if my young protege, former Muslim Nabil, can he join us on the stage?" And of course, Ravi and Nabil gets up, and that event was amazing. And Ravi ended up sharing somewhere that the University of Pennsylvania was one of the most spiritually oppressive college campuses he'd ever spoken at in the world. And obviously, us having been there, and we were anti-Christian when we were there, we were a part of that system, that spirit, if you will. And obviously radically converted when she was in law school at Georgetown, her being 2 years ahead of me, and then my senior year at Penn. As Ravi was coming, and obviously we're now working very closely with RZIM, and I'm talking with Ravi and Margie, before they arrive on the plane in the blizzard. The leading atheists of the city had actually begun publishing in newspaper articles their antagonism to the event. And the antagonism was building so much that now, like, it was getting out of the region to where people were catching word that Ravi is coming to Philly for the first time. He's already done this event at the Union League. He's coming to the University of Pennsylvania. And the leading atheists of the university and of the city are launching this preemptive assault on Ravi and on the cause of Christ. It was intense. I remember calling Ravi the morning before the event at University of Pennsylvania. The Union League is now behind us, and now it's UPenn. I said, Ravi, I've had a headache all day, and he just shared, I'm just feeling very prayerful, and I just knew to leave Ravi alone. It was like going into the lion's den. Well, when we went to the event, they had formed a large protest outside of the University of Pennsylvania's famed Irvine Auditorium, where Mikhail Gorbachev and so many had spoken. where my wife and I, during our unsaved career, had been in there just so lascivious in the anti-Christian events we would do in there, and for us to even be able to bring Ravi to the place where we had so disrespected our creator, if you will. Well, anyway, we pull up to the event at the University of Pennsylvania, and there was a mob in the front of protesters. And I remember I looked over at Ravi, and it was just he and I in my SUV, and I said, Ravi, would you feel better if I got personal security? And Ravi looked at me, and he said, I would. So I made a phone call to a close friend who's professional security, and the three of us walked through the crowd, and it's blustery, and this tail end of this blizzard is still ice storm, and we're walking in, and our coats are tight, and I'm holding Ravi, and my big Todd Brown is walking behind us, and I'll never forget the look on Ravi's face as we walked in, the pain, just the pain of this was a man who was a man, and he looked so much like Christ as he just walked through this crowd, and they were hurling insults at him, and he just had his head lowered like, let's just get this over with and walk inside, and so much like Christ. And it's so true, as the Apostle Paul said, how God's grace is made perfect in our weaknesses. Ravi got on the stage that night, and that was the night that you now see on YouTube. What are you afraid of? Or why are you afraid of subjective moral reasoning? And then Ravi asked, the student the question, well, do you lock your doors at night? And I made history. And look at how Ravi had just allowed himself to be weak at that moment. As he and I prayed together before he went up on the stage, and I had 25 people praying below the stage, just as Charles Spurgeon, history says, would have before Ravi went up, and he wanted to meet every one of those people praying and personally thank them before he went on the stage. And he and I went on the stage. I remember I cried before then because you could just feel the intensity of the night. I just found a stairwell to go in and just to cry. I didn't know why I cried. It was just the intensity. It was the fact that I was such a different person the last time I was in Irvine Auditorium, my brokenness for the community, the hecklers outside, that I saw myself in them, and I would act the same way before my conversion. And Ravi was used so mightily that night and literally just made history. Well, Ravi, at the end of the event, I remember he just said, I want to know how you do with the United Nations. Please call me after the United Nations. And he said, I remember at the end of the two events, he said, Aaron, we're going to have a beautiful relationship. We're going to have a beautiful friendship, and he had wanted me to come down and share at his founders weekend and to share about the University of Pennsylvania experience. And then things changed with travel and what have you. But we then became very close, and Margie and my wife, and it was a kind of relationship where we're running busy in this modern day Gotham called Philadelphia, which Ravi even attested to, of just how spiritually intense and oppressive this city is. So we're here on the front lines of this city. Ravi's on the front lines on a global scale, and it was just a relationship where we just knew, just a hi and an email and a quick exchange would just be a matter of, are you okay? Are you okay? Much love to you. Much love to you. Give my regards to your family. And then, after that is when I said to Ravi, and I remember I just sent him a text and I said, Ravi, let's do it one more time. Let's do it again. Let's do Temple University. Let's do the Leah Chorus Center. It seats 11,500 people. Let's do it again, Ravi. And by then, Ravi said, let's do it, So I actually went to the Leah Chorus Center. And what many don't know is to sign up for the Leah Chorus Center, you have to pledge, some $60,000. And I remember that I actually signed a big chunk of my salary as collateral to actually hold the spot at the Leah Chorus Center. And then we actually took the task. And of course, there are so many people who labored with me that I would call the dream team. I would just assemble a team, the dream team, and Karen Sawyer and so many others, and we would labor together, and Mark Prime, and Philip Thomas, and it was a dream team. So though God gave me the vision, and though I stepped on the front line to make the signature, it couldn't have been done without a team of people and without a praying church, Antioch, that always was behind the vision we would do. This was never a one-man thing. This was a family thing. Well, we had raised $90,000 in 3 months because once again, I wanted to make the event for free. And I remember even the operators of the Leah Chorus Center said, you know, you can charge the standard $20, and even that would make some $160,000. And I was like, we're free, nothing. So we did it, and we did the temple event, and Ravi came back to town, and I actually had my son get up and share. And if you actually type in Ravi on YouTube, Does Truth Matter, you'll see the event where I wanted my son to just, you know, be able to introduce Ravi, you know, in front of thousands, you know. And you just want to share what it was like. And
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, he was really just such a nice guy. Um, Even the way he just talked to me, talked to other people. Um, I've got like a lot of friends who are Christian. And like when I can tell them that I like knew who Ravi was and that like he was a good family friend of ours, like they're like, wow, that's crazy. But it feels so weird because Ravi was just he was just somebody who just really loved God. And he was just an amazing guy. Um, and to have like this guy who who's so close and who comes like doesn't even come off as he knows like his true effect. He just seemed like just someone just he was just so humble and just not prideful at all. It was just such an interesting experience to have. And so yeah, he was just really open towards a lot of conversations, um, from the dinners that we had with him, from the compliments and the conversations that he was having with all of us, and it was just he was just an amazing person to be around.
you know, my son is going into his second year at Purdue University as an astro and aero engineer. Currently is interning with a top global software company. So proud of him. And then, you know, my daughter Annie, going into her last year as an industrial engineer at Purdue University, is working at a top global pharmaceutical company. And I remember Annie even, you know, sitting with Margie, sitting with Ravi's wife at the University of Pennsylvania event. And as you had shared, how Margie just was just, you could see how close they were. And Annie and Margie were sitting together in the front row while Ravi's on the stage and I'm up there and Nabil is up there. And that's, you know, when, you know, the student got up and said, why are you so afraid of subjective moral reasoning? That's what you'll see on YouTube. Um, that has the 2.2 million views. Ravi, and then it's What Are You So Afraid Of on YouTube. Anyway, Annie remembers sitting next to Margie, and here Margie obviously had been doing this with him for decades. And what I loved about them is every event, it was never, well, yeah, we've done this before, or same old thing, you know, different day. It was like it was there. They were just fresh out of the starting blocks, you know, still fresh excitement, right? Fresh zeal, fresh opportunity, new day. This is the day the Lord has made. And Annie's sitting with Margie, and Margie is just saying comments under her breath, just cheering her husband on as Ravi is just answering, you know, these amazing questions on the spot. And you know, and we just formed an absolute friendship. Ravi and Margie have a deep love for Native American and indigenous culture. I actually had a large paddle hand carved for them from Alaska, Gunischish, to the Alaska family that made the paddle for them, which they have adorned their home with. Um, and you know, we just have been graced by God to be impacted, um, and we're heavy. I've a couple times today I've wanted to break down crying, and you know, many don't know is right now I'm studying for my master's in Wheaton College, and I'm in a cohort with Matt Chandler, you know, Johnson Bowie, and other pastors, Brian Broderson. There's 15 of us, and I reached out to Ravi last year, and I just said, "Hey, Ravi," and you know, I understand how busy he is, and I said, "Hey, Ravi, I've been invited into a program at Wheaton College for my master's. You know, would you write a recommendation for me?" And he was so excited, so excited. And he said, "Aaron, I'll be delighted to write the recommendation." And just while overseas, he just wrote this recommendation, and so fast, within hours, he all went to the portal and did it. And you know, I've just received an A for the year in my two classes, two A's, and I'm saying, Ravi, big brother. I would call him big brother or uncle. I won't let you down. I'm going to continue. So, I guess what I would just like to share in closing is this: here are some things that I'm taking away from my time with Ravi that me and my family will be talking about. One, Ravi loved learning. I never met anyone who just had such a love for learning. I remember we're sitting down and he said to me jokingly, he said, "My wife says I have uh, the arms of a thinking man," meaning that he obviously, instead of being in the gym, he just would read and write and learn. His favorite muscle to build was his mind. So the first thing I'm just going to make sure that I just reflect on was his love for learning. And in a day of such busyness and hustle and bustle and social media, and he alone could be someone that could be just riding herd on his social media accounts if he so chose, and how busy he would be with that. He made sure to guard his private world, and to just feed his mind. And his private world was cut off with boundaries, where no matter how noisy the world got, this man studied and dug deep. The second thing is that, as Josiah said, his humility. Um, you know, to sit with him, he'd rather listen to you. I remember we went out to Springfield as Philip Thomas and his wife. His wife had done research, and the second time we had Ravi out for the temple event, she had researched the village. Of course, she knowing the village, she was from India, the village that Ravi's parents were from. She made all of the foods that were from that region, and I took Ravi over there, and we ate. Ravi loved to eat. We would just, whether it was a barbecue house and we have barbecue sauce all over our fingers, and we're just laughing, and Nabil is just eating so much food, and we're marveling at how much food Nabil can put away, or whether we're in Springfield at this wonderful South Asian home, our shoes off and just eating this food, and Ravi's explaining to us which foods he's eating. you know um, when we left there, Ravi actually asked me if I would drive him through the hood of West Philadelphia, and he wanted to see in particular the street corner where the self proclaimed ISIS member had just shot the police officer and the squad car those 11 times it made national news. And we're driving through at night now, 11, 12 at night, through one of the worst hoods of Philly. We're just driving through, cannot be safe. And Ravi was just in the car watching, but you could tell this man had been around the world. This man, though he may have had security at events and those just helping him just be not be overwhelmed with a crowd or what have you, this man, you could tell, had been places. And he just wanted to take Philadelphia in, and the hood and the streets, and he would just ask questions. So one, he loved learning. He loved learning from people. He loved learning from just academia and what have you. Three, though he could talk about the Socratic method and all the different philosophers and take you all around the world, in the middle of it all, he was never ashamed of the gospel of Christ. That's point three. One, he loved to learn. Two, he loved listening to others. Three, he was not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ. He could be in any setting, and while the conversation could have seemingly been at 50,000 feet with no less than five-syllable words being exchanged, he would keep the simplicity of Jesus Christ and was never ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Four is just his love for the individual. When I brought him to this event, I chose for Ravi to sit with a college friend of mine who was raised Muslim named Suleiman. Ravi and Suleiman had developed this amazing relationship, and they'd exchanged information. Suleiman began sending him coffee as Suleiman was in coffee distribution, among other hats. Well, when Ravi came back 3 years later for Temple, first thing he asked me is, "Where's Suleiman?" And as we pulled into the Temple event, underground parking, I had Suleiman waiting at the top of the ramp just to greet. So, as many people as Ravi met, I mean, we can't even wrap our minds around how many. Ravi just focused on the individual. He remembered your name, your face, and your story. I remember, how excited Ravi was because my father had come to the Union League event, and we prayed for my dad to be touched by the message. And of course, Ravi, knowing how dear my dad was to me, and Ravi came up to me after the event and he said, "Aaron, your dad came up to me. He said he was very moved by my message today." Oh, we just rejoiced in that as well. So these are the things I'm taking away from my great friend Ravi. He has made an impact on us as a family. He has made an impact on Antioch. We are honored that we can say, I mean, by God's grace alone, that we can say we brought Ravi Zacharias to Philadelphia and that we put on this event by God's grace alone that would end up being one of the most viewed events, in all of Ravi's career. And it just shows what God does. Ravi was saved from a broken background of pain. I was saved from a broken background of pain. And look at what God can do in taking two broken men, one who's old enough to be the father of another, two broken men. And what his grace can do with broken men that he could just bring together from different cultures, different backgrounds, different stories, but the same brokenness, where we found the same love in this from the same Savior and allowed that same grace to stir our lives. So I'm just going to end here, and today I'm just going to be sitting down and I'm just going to be looking through his book, The Grand Weaver, and I wrote Ravi, a couple of weeks ago, and I just said, Ravi, I'm going to follow your footsteps by God's grace. I said, I'm not going to let you down. I'm going to continue my studies. I'm going to continue to operate on the front lines as you've set the example for me, big brother and uncle. So Ravi, every time I get some Lebanese desserts, I'll think of him. Every time I eat barbecue, I'll think of him. Every time I eat rum cake, it was his favorite. I'll think of him. And then for you, just enjoy the lectures. Let's take that baton that God hatched through this yielded vessel. Let's now take that baton and let's engage this world. Let's go into this world as we have yet another cloud of witnesses, Hebrews 11, another one who has left us, the cloud of witnesses in glory, that have shown that, yes, the Lord, without faith, it's impossible to please God, and that he that comes to God must believe that he is, and that he rewards those that diligently seek him. We see through Ravi's life that the Lord does reward those that diligently seek him. Let's be encouraged to diligently seek the Lord. And of course, I just think of Ravi in his final days, and I think of 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 6, where Paul said, "For I am now ready to be offered, and the time of my departure is at hand. I have fought a good fight. I have finished my course. I have kept the faith. Henceforth there is laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will give to me at that day, and not to me only, but to all them that love his appearing." This is Ravi's coronation day. Let's also look forward to running our race, finishing our course, keeping the faith. I remember Ravi, the last time he came to Temple, he said to me, well, I'm going to slow it down now. I won't be on a plane much anymore. And then boom, he's back traveling the world again, 72 years old with his back. And people didn't know the pain that he endured constantly to travel and to lay down his life. When he was traveling and preaching, he was literally laying down his life through so much pain for so many years. To Margie, we just love you. We're here, that. To the family, we're praying for you. To the RZM family, we're praying for you. Philadelphia's got you guys held down, and Philadelphia is right here. You guys know that. So today was just a different Daily Bread drive-thru. We'll be back tomorrow with our regular teaching at noon. And for those that just viewed in today for the first time, just thanks for your time and just for letting us just share from our heart today, about this wonderful man, Ravi Zacharias. Ravi, we praise God for this life. That's it. God bless you. Salute.